I opened with this piece last week, and I'm going to open with it again because it's as applicable today as it was last Thursday. The linguist Noam Chomsky tells us the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum. Even encourage the more critical and dissident views. That gives people the sense that there's free thinking going on, while all the time the presuppositions of the system are being reinforced by the limits put on the range of the debate. That's from Noam Chomsky. Is this what the so-called Justice Department is doing via selective persecution and mainstream American media and those in Western established press are complicit in promoting and protecting? Let's discuss it.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon. I am Wilmer Leon. Here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they occur in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historical context in which most events take place. During each episode, my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between these events and the broader historic context in which they occur. This enables you to better understand and analyze the events that impact the global village in which we live. On today's episode, the issue before us is very simply the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the U.S. government's attack on this inalienable right. And my guest is a political activist and author, co-founder and current chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, which was formed in 1972, and which leads the Uhuru movement, and he's one of the Uhuru Three. He is Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Chairman Yeshitela, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's very good to be with you, Dr. Leonard and Dr. Wilmer. And I said Leonard, I know somebody.
Not a problem.
Yeah, but the reason I really want to express appreciation to you, and even the comments that you just quoted from Chomsky, is that you are one of the reasons that we were able to come out of that courtroom after going to trial on September 3rd with an amazing victory. And we were able to fracture the total or the absolute solidarity of opinion regarding Black people and the righteousness of our struggle and the validity of the criticism that we make against the United States government. Because as you know, we were charged, the three of us, me, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, with being Russian agents. And then we were charged with conspiring, I guess, to be Russian agents. And what they have done is taken issues like reparations, like the charge of genocide against the United States government for its treatment of Black people, our opinion that differed from theirs on the Ukraine war and things like that. They are saying that it was the Russians who were responsible. In fact, in the trial itself, they went so far as to say the Russians came up with the reparations idea. Russians came up with the genocide idea. Russians were responsible for the institutions that we have created over the number of years for the liberation of African people. So they would maintain that kind of position. And so that would protect them from any criticism that Black people had about our treatment in this country. So they would restrict the discussion so that if we said something that challenges the acceptable narrative, then it was because we were paid by the Russians. Some foreign entity was responsible for that. And so I think it was really important that we went to trial and that the jury was able to see through the essential question here. And the state lost in terms of its efforts to criminalize Black people fighting for freedom. It lost by saying that what we were doing was a consequence of being hired by the Russians. The jury said they didn't believe that. The jury said not guilty. We were not guilty of being paid, working for Russia and without registering as foreign agents. And the conclusion there was that that the struggle of black people is legitimate, that we have legitimate gripes, we have legitimate criticism of the government, and we showed the whole history of our fighting around these interests going back many, many years. We connected the struggle of African people here in Africa and other places around the world. We did that during this trial. And so the jury said that they agreed that we had the right to do that. And the problem, of course, was the confusing second charge, if you will. I say second, I don't know if it was a second charge, what order, if you want to put it in, but there was a secondary charge. It was secondary in the sense that not just because the penalty is like 5 years as opposed to a maximum 10-year penalty that we would have gotten for the conviction of working for the Russians, but also the fact is that the jury was confused by what that meant, as I am even as we have this discussion now. What was the conspiracy? If the jury said that we were innocent or we were not guilty of working for the Russians, then what was the conspiracy? And are they saying that we wanted to work for the Russians, but it didn't work, and so we conspired to do something and failed to carry it out? Is that what they're saying? And I think it's a lot more to it than that. And of course, we're going to be appealing this, and there's a lot of work we have to do between now and then. And the work that you have done, the doors you have opened for us and other forces like yourself contributed to, I think, this magnificent victory that we had. They couldn't put us on trial in the darkness. People were aware of it. People came to Tampa. The courthouse was full, and they had to get a larger courtroom, and every day the courtroom was full. And when the jury looked out at that courtroom, they saw people who looked just like them. And I doubt if they saw anybody that they would have characterized as a Russian there. So that was really important to get the people there, to get people from September 3rd throughout the duration of the trial, and to make them have to put this thing carried out in the light of day. And that's what we are contending with right now, because we still have to go for sentencing on November 25th. We'll be going to sentencing, and it's going to be important to get people to Tampa, to that courthouse for that as well.
You talk about September 3rd, and the trial started on September 3rd. And if my memory serves me correctly, they were expecting a 4 to 5 week trial.
That's what they said.
And what they wound up with was not even 10 days.
No.
They ran out of ammo. Go ahead and
I think it's really important to mention that, because the thing is that the government attacked us. And according to their own testimony, their witnesses and what have you, they took something like terabytes of materials that constituted at least 1.5 million books. So all the stuff they took from our cell phones, from our laptops, from other devices that we had, it was enough material for 1.5, for 1 in a million, 500,000 books. And so the thing was that out of all of that, I think they used something like 4 or 5 emails or stuff from Facebook, because there was nothing. There was nothing there. There was no there. And the state did not even have a human being or people who testified against us. All of their witnesses were people who worked for the state. FBI agents, they had 12 FBI agents. They had 2 so-called experts, and experts who didn't know how much under cross-examination, had to admit, first of all, they knew nothing about the case. Secondly, one of whom had to say that he didn't even know how much he was getting paid for doing this. And he was actually Russian, who was waiting to get his citizenship, to be able to achieve citizenship in this country. And they were unable, after going through stuff for more than 10 years of materials, and the 2-year duration of after this attack on us, they could not bring a single human being into that courtroom who would validate anything they said about what we stand for and who we are, that we somehow working for Russians, that anything we're doing now is different from what we've done for the last 50 years. They couldn't do that. And so it was that we were the only human beings in that court when it comes to testimony and what have you. The state testified, and then they saw people, and we were the people, and the people in that audience who came to this trial were the people, and the jury, those were the people as well.
Is this a test case? The Uhuru 3 were on trial, but was this a test case? Penny Hess, Jesse Neville, yourself, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the three of you, the Uhuru 3 were on trial. But if the government had been successful, if they had gotten a guilty verdict returned on that first charge,
yes,
how dynamic of a problem for free speech, for the Wilmer Leons of the world, for the Scott Ritters, for the Professor Danny Shaws and the Dan Kovalics of the world, would this have been? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I think that very smart people. I think the FBI and the Justice Department are going to have to recalibrate how they take this issue on, because it doesn't mean they're going to stop just because of what we have been able to do up to now. They will try to find ways to make even this conspiracy charge unfold in a fashion that challenges free speech rights of people even more. And that the conspiracy charge itself is a challenge to free speech. But this one, I think they'll have to recalibrate this whole thing about working for Russians, et cetera. And I think that that people have been watching this, if smart people, especially people like Scott Ritter, especially people who have the audacity to share views about the situation in the world, U.S. foreign policy, what's happening in this country, that challenges the narrative that the United States government puts forth itself. I think that people who have been dealing with the Cop City question, I think there's a whole array of forces out there who have stakes in the outcome of this trial. And I think that so far, we've done much better than I think many expected. And I think we can go ahead and further this by winning this case in the conspiracy. But beyond that, we're going to be doing more, Dr. Wilmer. We think that the law itself is a political law. Mm-hmm. When you got a law, it's a political law. It's not a law against robbing, killing, shooting, stealing, or kidnapping, anything like that. It's a political law. The law was created for the purpose of carrying out political objectives in the contest with whomever was decided to be the enemy at any given moment.
And so, let me jump in really quickly just to say, because I think it's very, very important for people to understand at this juncture. You were not charged with sedition. You were not charged with trying to overthrow the government. You were merely charged with saying things the government didn't like.
Yes.
Because what you said was consistent with some of the things that the government of Russia and other people in the country have said, which, by the way, the things that you're articulating are true.
Yes.
So simply put, if Russian President Putin comes out and says the world is round, and you come out and say the world is round, but Washington will have us believe the world is flat, all of a sudden now you're conspiring with Russians, you're working with Russians, you're operating on behalf of Russians.
Well, it doesn't even matter if Putin says the world is round and we say the world is round. What they're saying is that we don't have to be lying. What we say has to be something that undermines the United States.
I use that example simply to make the point that what you're saying is actually accurate.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that's real because we at one time we had talked about bringing in experts of our own to testify about the whole history, for example, of the Ukraine war and how all of that stuff got started, and it wasn't just some evil Russians who decided let's jump on this helpless and defenseless and innocent Ukrainians or something to that effect. And the point is, of course, that it is true what we said. It is true, but even if it were, this is what the court is saying, what the judge affirmed at one juncture, I think, and certainly the prosecution, that even if it was true, even if it's true, the Russians told you to do it, and therefore it's a crime. And they say we will move it from the element of speech now to an action. It becomes an action because the Russian told you to do it, so they liquidate the free speech question. And this is what they try to do. And this is their dilemma, not ours. Because we didn't write the First Amendment. We didn't write the Bill of Rights. They did it, and they say this is what they stand on and believe in. So they find themselves in this very treacherous and insidious thing all the time of trying to find out how we can have the First Amendment rights and a First Amendment and attack it without attacking it, without obviously attacking it, without saying that we're attacking it. And in fact, at one juncture, I think one of our lawyers wrote in the brief calling for the dismissal of the charges that we could have been talking about Russian cuisine. And would that have served the purpose of a charge, working for Russia? They said, yes, if the Russians told us to say something about Russian cuisine and we did it, that would be working for the Russians. This is it's garbage. It's a garbage law. And we intend to take it on. I mean, because this is just one aspect of it, fighting against these particular charges. But the law itself is a political law. It's a law based on politics. It's not a law based on criminal behavior, criminal activity, or anything except what the political climate at the moment requires. And so that's something that all of us have to be really concerned about as well. Not just the winning in this particular case, in this particular instance, because it's still there. And it's still something they can use, and they need to be put on the back foot around this question of having this 951 or whatever it is that they can say somebody's working for Russia or somebody is involved in some kind of conspiracy because it meets the political, political
objectives.
Yeah.
In fact, let me take a moment here and read the First Amendment. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Right.
And what I think is also important for people to understand about the First Amendment, the framers of the Constitution were very, very careful. Every word, every comma, every semicolon is in a particular place for a reason. So when they open the First Amendment by saying Congress shall make no law, what that is telling everyone is that this is a protection of the American people against action by the government. They could have said, you have the freedom of speech. They could have said, you can say what you want. You can write what you want. No, it's not. They are protecting individual rights by prohibiting action by the government. It's called a negative right, Chairman Yeshitela.
I think that's really important. And I think this is what we've been talking about all along, because that is in the Constitution. Who has fought harder for the Bill of Rights than Black people in this country historically? We started out with no rights. That didn't apply to us. So free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, we've been fighting like hell for this since we've been here. Every aspect of our existence in this country has been fighting for the benefit of the Constitution. So that is true. And I think that part of what we're looking at, so African people, Black people, we've led around that question. We've led around this question of the Bill of Rights and the free speech, and we still are. And that was because even when this was put forward, when this was ratified by the Congress, it didn't include us because we were enslaved in 1791 when this was ratified. So we've been fighting forever up to now, to this very moment, until a trial that we just went to for the right to free speech, the right to freedom of association, the right for freedom of assembly, the right for freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. We've been fighting for that. And now the problem is because it is in the Constitution, how can they attack us on the one hand without obviously offending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? And so that's the problem they're trying to solve. And so they're saying except for. Now they're trying to come up with an exception. And that's what even this law, this political law that they've come up with, it calls on the people, the court, and everybody to overlook this constitutional right under these circumstances that's chosen for political reasons at political times in place. And that's what we're looking at right now. And the thing about that too, Dr. Wilmer, that's so important to us. I mean, the whole thing is important to us and to all the people. Make no mistake about it. When they come at us, then it's not us because we never had the free speech, but it's for all those other people but the presumption that they had these rights, presumption of free speech. So when they attack us and using the attack on the First Amendment, it's on everybody's right to the First Amendment that's under assault. But I think it's especially and particularly significant for us what we've seen just transpire, because what they have concocted is this notion that everything is wonderful and peaceful. Everybody is acting civilized. There's no oppression of Black people. There are no contradictions that we have that are legitimate contradictions. If we are criticizing the government, if we are criticizing our treatment, it's because we're working for some foreign agent, not because it's a legitimate criticism that the government has to respond to. So as opposed to responding to it, as opposed to responding to the genocide convention that we are talking about, they have violated. They steal all all of the 130,000 signatures, and they attack. They say the Russians are the one who got us to do this. Instead of dealing with the questions of what is happening to us as a people, a huge number of African people in prison and stuff like that, they said, you can't make that complaint. That's not you making that complaint. It's Russians making that complaint through you. So they will nullify criticism by Black people against the government itself. So not just an individual, it's the whole Black population that has denied the right to criticize our treatment by the United States government. And that's been the fundamental thing that's really important. And that's why winning this, at least on the question of working for Russians, that's why that was such an important thing to occur. And we still in the trenches having to fight all the way down the line around the other aspect of this charge.
Do you see similarities between the persecution that you all are enduring and what the United States did to Julian Assange, the Australian publisher who through WikiLeaks released documents that he had received, government documents that he had received that exposed a number of American diplomats and a number of American elected officials for lying to the American people and to the world. The United States, through an attempt of extradition, held Julian Assange in Belmarsh prison in London for 7 years. He now has been released. He's now back in his home country of Australia. And when in fact, the United States was going after somebody for violating espionage and acts when he's not an American, never been to the United States. They were using their extrajudicial reach in getting one of their proxies, Britain, to try to carry out their torture of another individual. Are there similarities between that and what the United States did to you?
There certainly are. And I think that many, if not most of the people who are tied to the Assange struggle recognize that as well. We have been in touch with members of his family, and there are members of the Assange resistance that have come on board in terms with us, and even going into September. And we expect they will be with us going to November 25th when we have to go and face the sentencing. So it's an absolute thing. And you know, I'm old enough and dumb enough to have been impressed when we're hearing this stuff coming from our civic classes, etc., about free speech. I mean, I believed in free speech absolutely.
I still do.
Yeah, I don't think nobody believes more in freedom than slaves. You know what I mean? And, you can't. And all of our children, all of our teachers, and taught us around this. I mean, they were really, preached that to us, and so we were firm believers in this. You know, we didn't need any Russians. We had our own experiences, and we had magnificent, training from teachers who really passionately believed in free speech and had to believe in free speech to survive, and to be able to pursue our interests. I mean, I was the same age as Emmett Till when he was killed. What was that? Murdered. It was that 1955.
Mm-hmm.
55. Yeah. I was 14. He was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And and they murdered him. They said because he whistled at a white woman, which was really dubious. And even if he did, so what? But the thing is, they murdered this kid, and it was something that traumatized the entire Black community when his mama refused to allow him to bury him in to have a closed casket at his funeral. She wanted
Mamie Till.
Yeah.
Mamie Till wanted the world to see.
Yes.
I think the quote was, "I want the world to see what they've done to my son."
Yes. And Jet magazine
mm-hmm.
blew it up.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Africans saw that, and it traumatized us all. And to know that people can kill you like this with impunity. But anyway, yeah.
So people listening to this that may not have seen you on the show before, many may be asking why. Why was this done? I will posit that the world is changing. The empire, the United States, what was formerly the empire after World War II, its power is on the wane. Other forces is turning from a unipolar world to a multipolar world. China, Venezuela, Russia, the Middle East, a number of countries have decided we're not going to follow that playbook anymore. We're going in another direction. They're doing it peacefully, much to the United States' dismay. And there's a story, there's a narrative that the United States wants to continue to tell that isn't true. And through social media, through the internet, through the use of technology, there are more voices out there now that are exposing that lie for what it is. And I believe that's really at the heart. That's the crux of your problem. What say you, sir?
I think you're absolutely correct. I think it's really important for our listeners to understand that when we talk about how the world is changing and what have you, this is not just some abstract issue. Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with the cost of oil and gas and properties and the relative power that the United States versus other countries that it is contending with for domination in the world, etc. There are all kinds of important issues. I mean, the aspirations and hopes and etc. of the majority of the people, who live in this country are tied to the maintenance of the status quo, maintaining the control of the people in Iran and in Afghanistan and Nicaragua and Venezuela and the Black communities in this country, and maintaining control of the people in these concentration camps, that reservations, that Indian reservation they call concentration camps. So there's a lot at stake here. I mean, all of the petroleum in the world, I mean, it's located in these countries that's contesting for freedom, like Iran and like these other places and the others who have been pushed out of history. I mean, China, up until recently, people used to refer to China, people who were not doing well or who didn't appear to have good promise. They were saying you don't have a Chinaman's chance.
China used to be called the sick man of Asia.
Yes.
And they decided that they were going to shed that moniker, and that they were going to readjust their culture. They were going to readjust their economy. They were going to readjust their society, and that they were going to rise from the ashes. And to that point, another example, the Association of Sahel States. If we look at Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and how they have been able to throw off the yoke of colonialism by removing France and the United States from their countries, they're now trying to stand. To talk a little bit about what the Association of Sahel States, what some of these African countries are doing now, taking control of their own economies.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental thing, and they're moving toward it. And the Association Sahel States more effectively at this point, apparently, than most of the African entities that have come to be quote unquote independent, because they're not just quote unquote independent, they are combining. Because, as you know, the Africa and its current designation countries and stuff like that was created by imperialists, by the colonizers. They drew those lines, they drew those borders, they split up people, etc. It makes it very difficult for Africa to even access its own resources collectively. So, but France can access all of our resources as France. It can get resources from Burkina Mali, all of them, and
Niger.
14 different entities. France could play one off against the other, but we couldn't get access to our own resources, right? When France would overthrow entities, governments that tried to do that, independent of France. So that's a real kind of issue. And so I'm really appreciative of what these forces are trying to do, but it's very, very, very difficult because, as you've probably seen, because the France and the United States were using the basis for having these foreign troops, French troops in the Sahel, they had to fight these jihadists, the jihadist terrorists, and etc. And the moment the people kick them out, then you see the rise of terrorism again. They say you see people getting killed, slaughtered. And I'm convinced that the same forces are slaughtering them that are responsible for overturning the government of Ukraine when it did not suit their requirements and needs. They want to be able to have us say that we can't govern ourselves, or to indicate we can't govern ourselves, and therefore the white man has to come in and take charge of our affairs. Look at what's happening in Haiti right now. Look at how they're doing in Haiti. They've been doing this for how long in Haiti, right? And so, that's an aspect of the contradiction. We have to understand that there are all kinds of ways in which the colonizers attempt to advance their interests, and part of what they were trying to do is to create a situation where you beg for them to come back. And they have succeeded in doing that. They almost succeeded in doing that in Nicaragua. But Nicaraguan people won their freedom, and they started bombing and hurting people in Nicaragua to an extent, and demanding that the Nicaraguans have an election. And the people were so terrified that they actually voted the revolutionary organization out of power for temporarily. So they will do that kind of thing. And this is really serious stuff. And I just want to say, Dr. Wilmer, that the oppressed never determines what methods are going to use to be free. I mean, if the oppressor, if we could walk up to the White House or walk up to important establishments and say, please, let's be free, let us be free, and they say, okay, you're free now, and that was real, that would be cool. But that's not the case. Every instance you see all around the world, the oppressive, the determination of what it was going to take to be free was made by the oppressor. The oppressor. I mean, everybody tries to solve the problem the easy way. African people go, we pray, we beg, we have a nonviolent, do all of those kinds of things, and then they kill us. And all around the world, not just us, but other oppressed peoples everywhere. So it's never been up to us to determine what methods are going to be used to be free. We don't want violence. We want violence out of our lives. But they employ violence of all sorts against us. And sometimes they disguise where the violence is coming from.
A couple of things that come to mind. First of all, let me be sure I explain why we went from the discussion of your trial to the discussion of the Association of Sahel States. And I brought that up as an example of how the world is changing, how we are shifting from a unipolar, one control, United States in control, to a multipolar world. That's why I brought that up.
Right.
You mentioned hate.
Sounds like Putin.
Well, okay.
Movement of Russia.
Hey, right is right. The world, the world is round. The world is round, and 1 + 1 does equal 2. Even in Russia, 1 + 1 equals 2.
That's right.
The other point, you mentioned Haiti, and I just want to point this out to show some of the contradiction and some of the hypocrisy at the debate between Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. Donald Trump made that utterly racist, ridiculous, asinine statement about Haitians eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. And Kamala Harris was aghast at that statement. She was mortified by that statement, as she should have been. But here's the question. Where is the outrage of the United States trying to reinvade Haiti? Kamala Harris, as vice president, went to the CARICOM meeting, the meeting of the Caribbean states, trying to convince and twist the arms of the leaders of CARICOM to back the United States invasion of Haiti. So on the one hand, she's aghast at Donald Trump's ridiculous assertions and racist assertions about Haitians eating animals in Springfield, Ohio. But if the Biden administration wasn't trying to reinvade Haiti, most of those Haitians wouldn't have been there in the first place. They'd be in their own country, enjoying their own meals, living in their own space, doing their own thing. So I'm waiting for people that are as aghast at Trump's racist statement to be as aghast at the Biden administration for the Biden administration's racist policy. Your thoughts, sir?
I think you take us right back to Chomsky's observation. Like they define this reality, and they, and they place constraints on even how people can see you can't see the whole world. They've reinvented what the quote unquote left and the right are. So now the Democratic Party is left wing and the Republican Party is the right wing, et cetera. When did Joe Biden become a leftist, or Kamala Harris for that purpose? What has happened to the concept of left and right? I mean, they've redefined everything, and they've placed constraints on the ability of people to see anything outside of these parameters, ideological and political parameters that they've established. And I think that's right on. I even saw that when people proclaim to be aghast at Trump talking about building a wall, dealing with Mexico and Mexicans. But they ain't saying nothing about the walls that's being built all over Palestine. The same people had the ability. Walls are not unusual and peculiar. It's the thing that people do when they steal land, steal territory, and they want the people to be kept out of their own lands and what have you. So that's if we allow them to define stuff, and that's one of the reasons they would attack us. That's one of the reasons they would attack the whole Bill of Rights and the First Amendment and things like that. Because the matter the fact is, it's not just a matter of my right to talk. It's the matter of the people's right to hear what I'm saying. And that way they don't have to agree, but it gives them the ability to make an educated disagreement, if that's what it is. They don't want that. They can't handle that anymore. And I think the crisis that you just talked about in terms of a changing world, this is critical. I mean, and it's hard to overstate how profound this transformation in the world that is happening now. It is one that's moving away from the grasp of a sole hegemon. This unipolar world, as it's been characterized, is something that's under a tremendous amount of stress. And you can see it fracturing. And when it happens, because so much of the political economy revolves around that, it has serious implications inside the country too. And so that people who relied on being able to suck the blood of forces from around the world, when this stops happening, you see greater amounts of suicide, the death rate of white people, certain ages begin to happen, alcoholism begin to happen, and you see also people attacking the Capitol. attacking politicians who they feel have betrayed their ability to remain the top dogs in the world. And this is not something that's left to just Republicans or Democrats. I mean, this is something that permeates the consciousness of people in this country. There's a certain presumption of the right of America to dominate the whole world, etc. Otherwise, people couldn't even see what's happening in the world that under American leadership and dominance without protesting mightily. So, yeah.
One of the things also that I think one of the assumptions that a lot of people may have made as it relates to your case is you are engaged in dialogue at a time when America is at war, and that's what makes your narrative so dangerous. Here's the thing that people need to understand. The United States is not at war. Congress has not declared war in Ukraine. Congress has not declared war against China. Congress has not declared war in the Middle East. There's a whole lot of fighting going on. Yeah. There are a whole lot of bullets being shot and a whole lot of artillery rounds being launched. But the United States has started those conflicts.
Yes.
But more importantly, the United States is not at war.
There's no declaration of war.
There's been no declaration of war by Congress. So this whole thing about the sensitivities of the government and it needing to protect itself against domestic insurrection because this is a time of war, that's not true.
No, it's not true. And I'm really disturbed sometimes, Dr. Wilmer, about what often appears to be the gullibility. I don't think this is something generally true in the African community. I mean, maybe sectors of the African community, but ordinary Black people, we have this experience with the government. We know, like treachery abounds as it relates to
COINTELPRO.
Yeah, COINTELPRO. And even Black people didn't know about COINTELPRO. I mean, just ordinary Black people, the dealing that we have with the cops on the beat, everything, most Black people who have a relationship with the government is through the police. You know what I mean? That's the direct relationship through the police and the housing projects, every place, giving a corner, etc. And so we don't have the same illusions, not fanciful illusions about the state, and that's one of the reasons we used to work hard to pass out know your rights information to just poor people, because at the moment, poor people know that the Constitution says I'm supposed to have these rights, and many people don't know the Constitution says that. And because there's nothing in our lives that suggests that we have these rights, but if we say these are rights, the Constitution says you have these rights, you should have these rights, and then that often is enough to foster resistance to what's happening to us. They say, I'm not taking this. If the Constitution says I don't have to take it, I'm not taking that. And this tendency too often of people to simply bow to the current iteration of a lie that's based on political domination of peoples and extraction of their wealth and their values. This tendency is something that we have challenged and continue to challenge. And almost everything we've done contributes to that. Almost everything is tied to tactics and strategies. We want to be a free people. And for us in the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, it means like all dignified people, we want to be self-governing. We don't want foreigners and aliens extracting all the value. Being able to say that my labor should not go toward benefiting my community and my children and their children. We don't want that. We oppose to that. We don't want somebody to be able to start wars that Black people are going to be in front lines fighting, and or wars that could actually lead to nuclear conflagration, the obliteration of the people on the earth. We don't want people to be able to do that and us simply to be here without having any ability to confront the powers that are making these kinds of choices, and without even sharing the ability to do that with those of us who live here, who work for a living, who try to work, etc.
Well, and also something even more basic than that. You talked about these wars, the wars that we as citizens are paying for.
Yes.
And how that money is being wasted, how that money is being stolen. We talk about the military industrial complex in many regards. For example, the United States just authorized almost $600 million to send money to Taiwan for military aid to Taiwan, so that Taiwan can turn around and use that $600 million for this year to buy weapons from American arms manufacturers. Well, how many teachers' salaries could you pay with that $600 million? There are so many projects, there are so many things that could be done to truly ensure the safety of this country by improving the standard of living in this country. But unfortunately, those dollars go to Lockheed Martin, they go to Raytheon, they go to the military industrial complex instead of paying people's salaries, providing for health care and better education.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's criminal. It would be criminal if the people had any power.
Exactly.
It's not criminal now in the sense that the ones who have the power make the laws. The ones who want to do this stuff make the laws. Or if they don't make the laws, they tweak the law. They manipulate how people perceive law and things like that. And every time we get closer to the goal, they move the goalpost on us. They say, well, the law's changed. It used to be that way, but now it's changed. It's no longer that way.
Now the First Amendment doesn't matter anymore.
Doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter. There's exceptions.
As we wrap this up, what are the three most important things? First of all, there's going to be a rally. There's a rally coming up very shortly. Your sentencing is coming up very shortly. What are the three most salient things you want this audience to take away from this conversation today?
Thank you very much. I really would like to win people to come to Washington, D.C. For the Black is Back coalition mobilization that's going to happen along with support partnership with the Hands Off Uhuru Committee. We're still fighting this conspiracy charge and what have you. And that's going to be on the 16th annual mobilization, Black People's March. But this Black People's March is going to be an anti-colonial march that will see leadership coming from Palestinians, from Africans, Mexicans, Filipinos, you name it, the people coming together, and for white people who can unite, with the rights of Black people to have free speech and self-determination. So that's on November 2nd. Go to blackisbackcoalition.org, blackisbackcoalition.org for more information on that. On November 25th, we're going to be sentenced, and we're going to be in Tampa, Florida for that, at the federal courthouse. And I'm really calling on everybody, all of you who were able to put off things and put on your calendar coming to the trial. And some people came several times to the trial. Believe it or not, in a matter of a few days, people like Pam Africa and Cam Howard and others, they came several times to the trial. And we want you to come there, because we think it's really important for the court to continue to see that the people recognize the significance of what we do and what we stand for. And then finally, we are engaging. And so to get more information on that, go to Hands Off Uhuru, UHURU.org. And then finally, what we are involved in is a letter writing campaign. We're asking people to write letters. This is pre-sentence stuff. So some of this is letters that we want to affect the sentence that's going to be handed out on November 25th, which could be as extreme as 5 years in prison. And so we want people to write letters, and you can get more information on that by going to handsoffuhuru.org and continue to support the work that we do, because the final analysis, they attacked us because we've been effective in neutralizing or minimizing to some extent the colonial impact in our communities, the economic development programs that we've initiated and things like that. So continue to support us. And again, go to handsoffuhuru.org, go to blackisbackcoalition.org, and you can, that will get you everywhere. I'm not going to try to throw out more. Yeah.
Chairman Omali Yeshitela, co-founder and current chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, which leads the Uhuru movement, I want to thank you for your work. I want to thank you for your commitment to our people, and thank you for being a guest on my show today.
Dr. Leonard, I will not be able to overstate the significance of being here with you and the work that you do and helping the world to see us when the corporate and colonial media do everything they can to keep us invisible. This is extraordinarily important. I think the victories we had up to now are due in part to your ability to keep us linked to the people. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again, sir. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I want to thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. Also, please follow and subscribe, leave a review, share the show, follow us on social media. You can find all the links below in the show description. And remember, folks, that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge, because talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See you again next time. Uhuru, Uhuru, Uhuru. Until then, I'm Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a great one. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.